During the class year of 1951, Bill Murray, Rush Limbaugh, and Dale Earnhardt were born. Eddie Collins and Al Jolson died. The comic strip Peanuts is first published. China enters the Korean War, and Julius and Ethel Rosenberg are convicted of conspiracy to commit espionage.
This gang, this is the best gang in the whole world, and it still is, Eric. I mean, when it was senior skip day, we were all there. If it was basketball games, we were all there. And at that time, they had dances after basketball and football games. They had dances at the school. We were all there, and if if 10 were going to what used to be Tiny's restaurant out on Gratiot, if 10 was going, well, there'd be 20 show up, because that's just the way the class was. Bill Bird, fine young man. He's Bill is funny. He was he had, I don't believe he had any sisters. I believe he had all brothers. He was the president of the class. And I still see him today. He lives in Florida.
Always a lot of fun. Went to school with him at Harris School. Not from first grade, but he came, I think he came from Detroit. Anyway, he came to Harris School after the rest of us had started.
Lived out on 27 Mile Road.
Yeah, he was a fun guy.
He
Always was, still is.
Practical joker.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
If he lived for that.
This is the guy, Bob DeVos. This is, I call him the troublemaker of the bunch. Bob was. These guys would do anything to torment Miss Reed, who was the English teacher. Him and Jim and Wayne in class would put a bobby pin in those little seats that we used to sit in with one little desk there, and they'd put a bobby pin under there somehow, and then they wouldn't sit together. They wanted to sit way over and the other one would sit there. Bob would be the first one to let that bobby pin go off, you know, and under that wooden thing it would go ee. So of course Miss Reed be running towards that direction, and about the time she's running for that direction, it's coming from that direction, and then it's coming from that direction. This guy is funny.
Bob DeVos, nicknamed Squeaky. Used to live beyond me out on 27 Mile Road. We used to walk to school together and sometimes fight, sometimes whatever. He liked to do a lot of hunting and fishing. He was a little bit of rebel rouser, one of our class. Not really bad stuff, but remember the old corn shocks they used to have? Farmers used to cut corn, put it in bundles with a corn binder. Then you'd pick these bundles up and you put them in shocks, and they'd stand almost like your tripod there. And you let the corn dry out. Then in the winter time, you either go to the thrash machine and you come out and they'll pick these cobs of corn out of the shocks, and then they put them in a corn crib so they dry out more yet. Then you can shell them after they're really dry. Well, anyway, he got one of these corn shocks and spit out in the middle of the road one time. And Dad came home from work in the dark, and he swerved to miss that shock, and he went in a ditch, and he got Bob out of the bed to pull him out with a tractor.
Marcia Foss. We used to hang out together. The four of us used to hang out together. We used to have more fun.
Marcia was the quietest, and if anybody was going to be missing, it would be Marcia, because she couldn't stand crowds. She couldn't stand to be around crowds. Although she was good in class, she was excellent in classes and stuff, but she never really was a participator of the whole group.
Marcia Foss. Seems to me she was class president or vice president or something a couple of times. She was the star of our senior play. We had junior plays, senior plays. We were Glee Club, things like that. And she was a very quiet gal, but she got up on that stage and she shone. She was a star. Real nice gal.
Carl was outgoing, and another intelligent fellow, and I got a motor scooter, Cushman motor scooter for my 13th birthday, and then he got one, and then there was an older man in New Haven had one. So we used to get on them scooters, and we'd go all over the place. Carl and that guy and I, we'd ride all over.
He was always a good student, always full of fun, but yet not a boisterous troublemaker or anything like that, just a real nice guy. I don't remember Carl doing a lot of sports stuff, but he was always like senior class, junior class, probably class officer and stuff like that.
Oh yes, Joyce. No, we used to hang out together, and she was kind of shy.
Joyce Aldous was a very quiet individual. She, if when she was in our crowd, she probably was the quietest one in the whole bunch. But she always had that same smile. She just carried that smile with her wherever.
Ed Wissenberg, Mr. Jock. Which I'm sure you know a lot about him. I remember him at, well, all sports really. He's just a goer. Very good. I don't know if he started kindergarten in New Haven, but I know we graduated together, and I got confirmed together with him too.
He was probably the most wanted, the most wanted kid in the class. Ed was. Everybody loved Eddie, and he's turned out to be. He was that teacher in Armada for years and years, and he's the one we all went to that thing for him, and he's still a great guy. I saw him here at Skip's funeral, and he just had a knee replacement. He too goes to Florida, and so we'll have a little breakfast with him, Lord willing, next year.
He was always the sports. He was always the jock in school.
He was the star of the team always.
Yeah.
Best player. And ended up a school teacher, played football in college, and was in the Armada school system.
Nellie Crawford, she was another one that I stayed with a lot out at her folks. She was always fun and what to be around. And
Annabelle, I remember Annabelle. She's so tiny, petite.
Ann Tromley. Ann Tromley was our class queen when we were seniors. She was, I don't remember if she was in Glee Club or not, but I think she was a basketball player. I think she was in our plays too. Real nice gal.
yeah, here was my next door neighbor, Edith Prater. What a gem she was. Her parents were right next door to us, and we'd go to school together. I'd go over there every morning, we had to walk school from down there up to the high school. So I'd stop at Edith's, which was just probably from here to the end of the house. And when I'd get in there, I'd always say, oh boy, if I could only live here. They'd be having chicken and biscuits and all that good stuff for breakfast. This was a wonderful family, wonderful.
I remembered Vita. She always had this beautiful smile.
Vita Douthit, she came in she lived in Detroit. Her father was a policeman, and they came in, and I think she was there a year, maybe not quite. And her dad had to go back into Detroit because of being in the police business. He had to live there. So she and I run around together. She was one of the crowd kids. And her parents asked if she could get her finish her last year out by living with us, and that's what she did. He had polio when he was little, so he was just a little shaver, and he limped all the time, but he was tough. I mean, he'd take on anybody. He just was a tough little nut.
And Bonnie Baumgarten. She came later on. She was fun-loving, always outgoing.
Bonnie came to us, let's see, I believe she came in the 8th grade. Her mom and dad bought the New Haven Hotel, and I believe she came in the 8th grade, and she was just a cut up in a card, as you can see by the looks of her face. She ended up to be she was one of my great friends, and she ended up to be my sister-in-law.
Bonnie Baumgarten, great basketball player, great friend, happy person.
Billy Alexey, he was an outgoing sports person, played all sports. I believe he played all of them. His mother and my mother were very close friends, and I was a close friend to his sister, who graduated a year ahead of me. And so either they were at our house or we were at theirs or something.
Bill Elksey, we started kindergarten together, right on through to 12th grade. He was an athlete. He played ball, he played baseball, basketball, and he played football too, yeah. We only had the 3 sports when I was in school.
But she didn't, well, she went like to the dances and she'd come to that kind of stuff, but if it was anything kind of out of town, I think her folks were a little bit more, had a little handle on her, a little tighter than most of the kids, and so, but she'd been to alumni banquets, she'd come from California, I don't know how many times for alumni banquet.
Jean Schulte. Jean was a quiet gal in school, real nice. I'm pretty sure she was in Glee Club, and at least in one of our plays, maybe in both of them. She, I think, also came from a country school.
Ida, she was one of my best friends. We used to hang out together. She was extremely funny. She used to keep us in stitches all the time.
Ida lived kitty corner from my grandparents, so I was at that house a lot. More to herself a little bit. She'd be always in the gang, but she kind of wouldn't be maybe a big participator of things that we kind of tried to conjure up to do.
Ida Conchola, another one that started kindergarten through the 12th grade. She was our minister's granddaughter, yeah. She died at 29. Youngest first person to die out of our class.
Lyle lived in the country. Him and Jim and Bob, Russell Burden, they all run around together. So these guys were always at everything. Lyle, he was just one of them fun-loving guys. Every time you looked at him, you couldn't help but love him. He was just, he was kind of a big kid, and so, you know, us girls, every time we'd see him, we'd run and hug him.
He was active in school, not so much in sports, but like in maybe school offices or something like that. And you could always count on him. If you needed help with anything or whatever, he was always there for you.
Jack was kind of quiet, but always there. He was like, he was kind of like Julie. Yeah, Julie Lipka. Julie's folks owned the bakery shop in New Haven. And she went from school to the bakery shop and from the bakery shop to school, and she just one quiet little woman.
Norman, back in school, he was a very good athlete. He played all 3 sports also. Very good athlete. One of the jocks.
Norm was a super kid. He was an aid child that went to live with Mrs. Lemon when he was in, I guess, maybe like about the 6th grade or something. So he also went to the same church I went to, and he ended up working on the railroad. In fact, he's just retired not too long ago.
Norm, he were a good sports guy.
Played guard, point guard.
Yeah, a lot of basketball. I think he probably played baseball.
Yeah, he played all sports.
Yeah.
But he was good. He was a good two-hand shooter from the half court, which is unusual. You know, back then, instead of all the one-hand shots back then, they used to shoot a lot of two-hand shots.
Eugene Jagoda, he's you can see by that face what he is. He's another one of them. We always call him the handsome Jay, because he was always he's always had that smile on, and all the girls were always following him around him, and we always used to tell him, you're gonna have more women than you know what to do with. My cousin Jim, and he came in the 9th grade. He went to country school. He was very quiet. He got in with this class and he finally kind of opened up, but he was always into everything. I don't think he never danced a step, but he was to every dance.
Jim Beaversdorf, just saw him last night. He was a fun guy too. He always liked fun. He always had his own car. Always a pretty nice looking car. Pretty straight guy, I think. Yeah. He was into sports too, but I don't think as much as Bill.
Victor Smith. He was a little bit of a mite. I mean, a little bit of a mite. He was a foster child he lived with Louise Borges's parents, him and his brother Earl. And Earl was 1 grade ahead of Victor. And we graduated. When he didn't have to work, he would be with us.
Harold Chenault, I don't remember if he was in Glee Club, but he was in basketball and he was real active in class stuff and plays. I think he was in our junior, senior plays. Very nice fellow.
Harold Chenault had a lot of smarts and whatever. He was he studied a lot, and he was going to go somewhere. We knew he was going to go somewhere, and he was always in the midst of us, wherever, and whatever was going on. Harold was there.
Harold Chenault, very intelligent guy, became a doctor. I think his dad had something to do with starting the Chenault subdivision out there.
Wayne was my boyfriend in school, and what can I say about him? He was just kind of, his dad owned the pool room, so he was kind of, the guy that was out and about and doing, and these guys, he was another one of that bunch that was in there.
Wayne Lee, he liked fun. He liked a lot of fun. I don't think he was heavy in sports either.
Lyle Spangler, I think he's been to, well, I know he has. He's been to every alumni banquet except when he was in the Navy. And I think in one time when he was in the Navy, he was at home and got to come there. But if there was one fella that kept up with this class, it's Lyle Spangler. He was at everything. His dad used to be the Santa Claus in New Haven when we were just little kids. We didn't even know who he was. We just knew that he was Santa Claus. In later life, we found out it was Lyle Spangler's dad. If there's going to be a missing face in our group, it's going to be this one.
Louise Borges, another country gal. She came from 26 Mile Road. She lived not too far from Rosalie and Emily that he was classmates with. Louise became a nun after graduating from high school.
Catholic nun.
She's always was, she surprised everybody when she did that. But not because we didn't think she was the type, it just was a surprise. But she was always a real nice, quiet, happy girl.
And she played basketball. She was fun-loving sports. And shortly after she graduated, she became a nun. Well, we could not believe that girl could become a nun, and we laugh at it today.
Louise Borges, she's a nun. I see her once in a while. She's retired, and in fact, I dated her a couple of times. She lived on 26 Mile Road. Nice gal.
But he was quiet. He was a little guy, and he was really quiet. So everybody smoked at that time, and Raymond, of course, he didn't smoke. And so we said to him, "Raymond, you ever smoke?" "No, I never smoke." "Well, you're going to smoke today." So we gave him a cigarette. Somebody lit him a cigarette and gave it to him, and he took a couple of puffs of that cigarette. And he says, "I'll never," in my book it says, "I'll never forget that first." And then he just made a big line. Cigarette. He didn't want to say cigarette. He just made the line. He was another very studious young man.
We had our senior skip day. There was Ray Sikowski and Lyle Spangler and myself. We rode in one vehicle, and our tradition was to, as a seniors, we would get together and we would plan the skip day, and then we would, early in the morning, probably about 5:30 in the morning, we go over to the superintendent's house, Mr. Seifert's house, and we'd wake him up, say, "Hey, this is senior skip day." And he didn't know it ahead of time, only we knew it. And we'd take him along on senior skip day. We used to go to the radio station over in CKLW over in Windsor. That was tradition, and be on the radio station early in the morning.
Lorraine Stearns, she was another one. She was a cheerleader, she was basketball, she was everything. She was just a just a cheery girl, and she was into the stuff that always at the games and always at the dances, always everywhere.
Lorraine Stern, cheerleader with her. She was a basketball player. She was on that great team we had. Very bubbly, very happy, very active, very smart. Went to the country school, Harris School.
Fran Thompson, she's another one that was in our crowd, and I'm gonna have lunch with her tomorrow. She was a cheerleader, and she didn't play basketball, but she was a cheerleader, and she was always in and about things that were going on. And Donna was one of my closest friends from childhood right up. Her dad and my dad worked at the foundry and lived by us. We lived near each other, so she and I've stayed close. She's the one married Dale Giroux, lives in Florida now.
Dean Dreyer. Dean was a real good sports player, football and basketball and probably baseball too, I guess.
Lived about
Lived
5
in,
houses from the school.
yeah, lived in town, would have gone there throughout his whole career. Real nice guy.
Dean Dreyer, he was another good sports kid. He was little. He was a good basketball player, but he was short. And he had a great personality. He was a great kid.
Dean Dreyer. He's another one that started kindergarten through the 12th grade with me. He was very good at sports. Basketball, football, and baseball. Another one that died young.
Marilyn Jones, Muggy. I often wondered where she got the name Muggy.
Marilyn Jones, everybody knows Marilyn. Muggy. She's quite a character. She's the one that's really held our class together. She's really, she knows everything's going on about everyone, you know. So if she finds out about someone, she'll call me and I'll spread it out. What people that don't have internet, I'll mail mailings out to them. She was very active in sports. Yeah, she was a go-getter, I gotta say that. A little bit of rabble-rouser though too.
And Muggy Jones. Muggy's great. I just knew her from high school on. And Muggy is absolutely one you could always depend on. Great basketball player. Girls basketball was way different back then. We had, you either were a guard or you were a forward.
You played
And if you played guard, there were 3 guards on this half of the court and 3 forwards on this half of the court. Did you know this? You probably did. Okay. And it was way different than it is now. But Muggy was Muggy and Bonnie were 2 of the best basketball players. There were a lot of them on our basketball team. We had a real good basketball team.
Yeah, it was before the homecoming. The night before the homecoming, we always had a big snake dance, and they had a great big fire out there in the back where now is a baseball diamond. They had this big snake dance, and we snake danced all through town, everybody let us in their grocery store, and we'd even go through the bar, because you could get in one bar and go right out the back door, and we'd just snake dance right through it, you know, and then go up to the school and have this big bonfire and sing and just a glorious time. It's just been a wonderful thing, because everybody complains about little old New Haven sometimes, but this is one of those places where everybody would have wished their kids could have gone if they could have seen what kind of school it really turned out. That is one bunch of people that have stayed in my heart all my life.
The class of 1951. Joyce Aldous, William Ellis, Bonnie Baumgarten, James Beaversdorf, William Bird, Louise Borgas, Ida Conchola, Harold Chenault, Nellie Crawford, Robert DeVos, Veda Dufit, Dean Dreyer, Marcia Foss, Norman Froh, John Goulet, Lyle Granzow, Norman Hewer, Eugene Dakota, Marilyn Jones, Carl Leish, Wayne Lee, Julie Lipka, Donna McFerden, Edith Prater, Raymond Sikowski, Gene Schulte, Robert Scott, Victor Smith, Lyle Spangler, Lorraine Stern, Francis Thompson, Annabelle Tromley, Edward Wessenberg.